Hello everyone, welcome back, Void here. This is an unusual video because I don't do these a lot. I don't do these videos where I just talk about the state of Magic the Gathering or just really my own opinions, my own beliefs. Usually when I make videos I talk about cards, I go into detail about decks I make, top 10 lists I make, and this one is going to be more just about a trend that I'm noticing. It's not a dangerous trend necessarily, but it could be. When we go back to certain sets, and I've said this way back, I mean, if we're going to War of the Spark in early 2019, War of the Spark, around the same time, if you remember, we had the Avengers movie, the Infinity War, and I said to myself at the time, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but they're setting up a Magic the Gathering set that's very similar to the events of the Infinity War. Now, it could just be coincidental because, as we know, Magic the Gathering sets, it takes around, 2 years to make a set? So War of the Spark was being worked on as far back as 2017. However, if you watched Infinity War, Thanos, you have the big demigod who is pretty much powerful enough if he gets all of the Infinity Stones to erase half of all living beings. They kind of did the same thing, the stakes, where you had the Avengers, you had pretty much everyone in the Marvel Universe at the time. And I'm sure if the X-Men, and you were able to, you would have also seen the X-Men join up, because you had Guardians of the Galaxy, you had Black Panther. That was pretty much their way of saying, we're going to lump everything in together and make one big special. One gigantic celebrity movie where you have all these different characters we've seen so far, we've gotten to know all of them. But the point I'm trying to make here is that War of the Spark was very similar to that, where you had essentially a demigod or a god who could destroy everything if he wanted to. And we have all of our planeswalkers join forces. Here's the Oath of the Gatewatch, everyone. Essentially the Avengers. So I kind of thought to myself, well, that's a coincidence, right? There's no way that these things are similar until I'm starting to notice now. With Kaldheim, we're starting to see a very similar trend here. Now, I don't know what it is about Vikings, but over the last few years, they've only been gaining popularity. We've had shows like Vikings, we've had shows like The Last Kingdom, in addition to, get this, a video game called Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Coincidentally, we're also getting a set in Kaldheim where it's pretty much Norse mythology. And to take it a step further, I mean, we have the Draugr creature type, so it's very much like Skyrim. Now, I want to tell you why this isn't necessarily a good thing. I know some people don't care, and that's fine. But Magic the Gathering imitating pop culture is probably the worst thing that can happen. It's not unprecedented, by the way. I mean, if we go back to Arabian Nights, this was right around the time of the Aladdin movie. So, it's happened before where Magic the Gathering runs parallel to pop culture, and I think the Aladdin movie came out right around the same year, 1993, but close enough to where you're thinking to yourself, wow, what a coincidence. Until you accept that it's not just a coincidence, but it's rather an unfortunate trend, which back then, even if it wasn't a coincidence, it would kind of make sense. Magic the Gathering was an infant at the time, trying to grow in popularity. Well, let's feed off of pop culture. Now, you have to ask yourself, why does Magic the Gathering need to feed off of pop culture? Why do we need to have a secret layer where it's essentially just the Walking Dead characters? My argument here is that Magic the Gathering does not need to follow pop culture. Magic the Gathering needs to be a trendsetter. Let me explain. The best times in Magic the Gathering, if you were to ask people who enjoyed the lore, if you were to ask people who enjoyed the characters, the artwork, everything, the best times for Magic the Gathering, it's when the stories are unique. They don't try to copy off of anything else. Urza Saga is a good example of this. Planeswalkers in general, the idea that you're traveling from plane to plane, and these planes are like different worlds. That's something I don't really think has been done before, and to put that in a card game just makes it even more unique. And you can have your unique characters, you can have your Karn, you can have your Yawgmoth, you can have your Nicol Bolas. You're always going to have something be derivative. I mean, dragons are always going to be derivative of something else. So are wizards and elves. You can't really go too far without evoking the likeness of Tolkien. But the story should be entirely unique. And if you're just running parallel to something else in pop culture, you're no longer a trendsetter, you become a trend follower. And it's not really a position of strength. If you're talking about the best card game in the world, which I still think Magic the Gathering is the best. Even if we go back to Ikoria, while Ikoria is a weird world, it very much played off of pop culture. You had the Godzilla card, and I'm thinking to myself, just stop doing this. It's cool, it's fun at first, But then you start to notice the pattern, you start to see a reliance on those properties. Well, can we make more magic cards for other popular things? And my only issue with people who got upset with the secret layer for The Walking Dead, my only issue with that, which I kind of trolled people, and if you remember that video, you'll know, very divisive topic. My only issue was that that was the line that people drew. Like they said, we couldn't have mechanically unique Walking Dead Magic the Gathering cards that were legal in Eternal formats. And I said, at the time, if your problem is now, if you're just starting to notice these problems now, that they're essentially eroding the unique quality to this game in the storytelling, the characters, if you're starting to notice that now, then it's too late, because they've been doing this for a long time now, taking away the unique quality, the unique aesthetic to the game. We could go back to Kaladesh. Why the heck do we have vehicles in a fantasy game? Suddenly we went from being fantasy to sci-fi. You start to see how it gets a little weird there. Now suddenly the view is that you can go from plane to plane and it could be something like science fiction. So now are we going to have Alien versus Predator in Magic the Gathering? Are we going to have that? Are we going to have Terminators? There has to be a respect for the universe of Magic the Gathering, the fantasy theme as well. And we're getting dangerously close to where Magic the Gathering is no longer reliant on its own creations, but that of pop culture. And yes, Kaldheim is a fantasy set, no doubt about it. Fantasy is usually in the setting of medieval times anyway, so if you go back at least 700, maybe 900 years, you're going to find something that applies pretty well to the fantasy genre, no matter what culture we're talking about. So of course, yes, Kaldheim does. However, you have to pay attention to the pop culture surrounding Magic the Gathering at the time, and it's very clear to me that this is a trend-following set. And even when they want to go back to something that's more uniquely their own creation, that's not really influenced by pop culture, you could go and look at Theros, you can go and look at Ravnica. Boy, are they just milking those dry. I would not be surprised if we end up returning to Ravnica for a third time within the next few years. I mean, that's how little creativity I'm seeing. Ikoria, I mean, what's the difference between Ikoria and Ixalan? If you had to ask the average Magic the Gathering player, what's the difference between this plane with dinosaurs and this one? So it's an unfortunate trend, I think. And this is really all amplified because of the secret layer stuff, because of all this special edition artwork that looks like something it's not supposed to be. You get a Godzilla creature, which it sounds cool at first to someone who's been playing the game for a long time. Oh look, it's like an altered art card. Until you see the secret layer stuff, it just keeps getting worse, it keeps getting worse. They're just exacerbating the problem. So it's just food for thought. It's something I'm starting to notice, and it's really weird, because I know it does take some time to create these sets. It takes, 2 years? But it just seems like right alongside pop culture, they're following the same trend, and for 2020 it was Vikings, or just trying to be like Skyrim. I don't know. But anyway, let me know what you think. Void here signing off. See you all next time.